Hello team and welcome back to another Line Warcast. This is your map today. It's a 3v3 between Snow in blue, Animorph in red, and Tomahawk in orange on Alpha team. And on Bravo team, as someone said that my nickname sucks, in teal, Flat Black in pink, and Alex Donald Roland aka ADR in green. It's going to be all play on land here. Very unlikely that either team's going to make a dock. Potentially ADR could build a dock in the bottom here to send some infantry across to cap this bottom left island, but besides that, we probably won't see any docks in this game. So team-wise, red and blue are on the same team. In Line War, red and blue is on the same team in team games. It's a little bit unintuitive, but that's the way it is. So it's a 2v1 situation from Animorph and Snow against Flat over here. On the other side of this mountain range, Flat's teammate... Oh, this is actually... Tomahawk is also on Alpha Team, so this is really a 3v1 situation in the north. So Flat's going to be in a lot of trouble going for helicopters with a supply... or whatever it's called, a power plant to begin the game, and an artillery piece. If we've seen in previous games, if there's any way to actually deal with a 3v1, it's that Pink is going to have to dig in immediately and just play defensively. ADR has commando drops going on. That is probably going to be sent to the bottom left, but potentially could be used offensively to drop commandos in right on red or blue's main base. And then Nickname's got 3 factories all going tanks, and the first refineries on the way to keep those tanks moving. Tomahawk has 3 factories, tanks as well, and 2 airports. So very heavy energy play from Tomahawk, but they do have this one energy refinery, and they have another refinery relatively close, this energy location, if they want to build that, and they will have to build that if they're going to keep up with tanks and then helicopters. So Pink is buying a little bit of time, but there's no possible way that Pink's going to be able to deal with 2 combined armies, let alone 3 combined armies, and then tanks especially, because the tanks for Orange are going to be on top of this Pink airport and probably destroy it before a helicopter can even be built. Animorph recognizes this situation and builds a town aggressively in front of Pink, because there's no possible way that Pink is going to be able to punish that because of Snow and Tomahawk's army. And for now, the other 2 players on Bravo team are down in the bottom. Nickname's starting to send some tanks up to the north to try to open up another front and get at least 1 player off of Pink's back. But 3 orange tanks themselves could end this game right now. There's no helicopters that are out for Pink. There's not that many infantry back at home. I suppose there was 1 helicopter out, but these 2 SAMs for Animorph get rid of it pretty quick. Pink airport will be destroyed, and then potentially another barracks. And when that happens, Nickname is going to have an army on top of Red's base. This is Alpha Team's vision, so they're seeing Nickname come into the picture now. And they can see how many tanks there are. Tomahawk continues to build tanks out of these 3 factories, and the first helicopters are done for Orange, which will be very important to help defend against these teal tanks. And this is where the helicopters are headed for Tomahawk to help out their teammate in red. We see in the north of the picture that Tomahawk's tanks have been able to destroy 1 of the barracks. They're now working on a 2nd barracks. And Snow's got some artillery pieces that are going to be able to help out with these infantry that are on top of Red's airport. Over time, Pink's still in a lot of trouble. And now the question is whether Pink can buy enough time for Nickname to do some damage, and for ADR to potentially get in the picture as well. Commandos have landed on the bottom left island now, and ADR is working on a town and the first refinery. We saw that Teal was building SAMs, which will be nice to deal with this growing helicopter count from Tomahawk, who continues to go for helicopters off of both the airports. And Tomahawk's tanks have nearly destroyed all of Flat's buildings. Flat must have a building somewhere. Okay, I was gonna say, if you lose all of your buildings, you are out of the game. There's no chance. You have to have a building on some territory. I don't think Flat even had a territory to build that barracks on. So we're in a 3v2 situation. Nickname's got 3 tanks on top of Tomahawk's refinery, and they are targeting this. So they're going to go straight there. Luckily for Tomahawk, at least one of the helicopters is going to be able to get in on the action here with the missiles. The second helicopter is out of rockets, so it's just using its machine gun, which isn't as good. And Nickname's also got a helicopter here. This is going to be a huge snipe because this is going to stop all of Orange's tanks and helicopters from flying. And it'll be very difficult for Orange to set up another refinery without those helicopters and tanks moving. Because Nickname would just be able to go drive by. I mean, if this refinery existed, one of these tanks could get over here without the helicopters doing too much damage. And if we go top down, this is what it looks like. Bravo team in the teal or whatever that is, kind of off green, and then Alpha team in the north with all the blue. So it looks like relatively even on how many territories both teams have capped. But having that extra player is a pretty big deal. So Tomahawk has stopped all production from these buildings, probably waiting to have enough money to build a refinery or something here. Yeah, so now there's about to be 260 in the bank for Tomahawk, so we'll see one of these two refineries likely go down. And there it is. I was gonna say, unless there's another super secret top tier play that we're waiting for. The disconnect sound we're hearing is just flat leaving the game. It just happens in replays. This one helicopter from Nickname has done so well in this forest. And Animorph's trying to use these helicopters, try to pick up, or these SAMs to try to pick off one of the helicopters. They're kind of defended by these artillery pieces from blue. But we'll see just how effective tanks are right now as Nickname takes this on. 3 tanks against 7 artillery pieces that were more or less all deployed by the time the first tank started firing. And if the tanks, if we had any doubt that the tanks were going to be able to do it, they're certainly going to be able to do it with help from this one helicopter. So now the strength of it is that Alpha Team doesn't have to focus anything to the north. All 3 players can push to the south. Here's an ADR drop with some commandos, getting relatively close to Tomahawk's base. And Bravo Team continues to cap the south. And importantly, they are on the bottom left island, so over time that'll be a lot of income. It's just a huge question as to whether Nickname and ADR can actually take on this 2v3. They don't have an absurd eco lead. Usually in cases where we see the, you know, the two players against 3 players or whatever, the team that has the disadvantage on numbers, usually they're able to win if they have a huge eco lead, which I don't think is the case. So we can actually check that Nickname has 470 economy. This always freaks me out, because if I click over, we don't see flat. Okay, so whatever we said, 460, something like that for Nickname, 567 for ADR. Snow has 542, 435 for Red, and 400 for Orange. So Alpha Team in total still has that eco lead. And now that Tomahawk's got the one refinery up, this will be way easier to deal with this many tanks. And Orange should have a handful of helicopters. Maybe there's just one helicopter. So I suppose Orange doesn't need to build a second refinery super quickly anymore. At this point, there's 3 tanks now back at home to defend the refinery, which is really good for Orange. Nickname's got a decent SAM count, and there's not a lot of, or helicopter count, pardon me, and there's not a lot of SAMs here for Alpha Team to deal with these helicopters. But clearly we can see the plan. Nickname really has identified that destroying these refineries from Tomahawk are a big deal. And it makes sense because Tomahawk has 2 airports. This can very quickly snowball out of control when your opponent gets a huge helicopter swarm. And off of 2 airports, it just means that Orange's helicopter numbers will grow very quickly. And unfortunately for Nickname, Tomahawk's got very good defense on that refinery with those 3 tanks ready to go. And now Snow's artillery numbers are starting to show up at ADR's doorstep. There is a relatively aggressive airport for Snow here in the mountain range, and Blue also has a town and has capped most of the left-hand side of the map. No infrastructure yet on the bottom left island for ADR. It probably makes a lot of sense. It's not like ADR can really afford to put any buildings on that island, given this impending 3-person push on their starting location. At this point, Tomahawk's dealt with all of Nickname's pressure and so can start to really focus on pushing forward. And the front is wide enough for Alpha Team that this is their vision. They're going to be able to see any tanks that Nickname decides to send. There's a lot of early warning. So it's more difficult for Nickname to just show up with tanks and snipe a gas or anything, because any route they take, they're seen the entire time. And now this helicopter count from Tomahawk gets even bigger. There's 5 orange helicopters done. Great drop from ADR. This could be very effective. It's going to be 4 commandos. They might be able to find this airport from Blue. There's enough SAMs at home for Bravo Team that Tomahawk will have to be a little bit careful with the helicopters when they inevitably go towards the south. I can't imagine they'll stay here much longer. The real reason that these orange helicopters are probably at home is just because there's not enough energy to fly them all with this handful of tanks that Tomahawk has going. I think there's 4 tanks for orange that are moving. And this is the strength of these helicopters. They dealt with all those artillery pieces. Is Alpha Team making SAM? So Snow is making a few, and that looks like about it. Animorph has a few that are moving up forward. And then at the moment is just artillery pieces from Tomahawk, who has 2 SAMs with their army pushing. At some point, Alpha Team's going to have to get SAMs to cover this army probably on the left-hand side, because these helicopters are going to find great success. ADR's got the commandos loose. 2 of them get out and are being chased by all that blue infantry. But I think that Tomahawk is going to overwhelm on the right-hand side. And then that is going to slowly end the game. Maybe this huge helicopter swarm from ADR will be able to do enough to really turn the tides, but I'd say that this is certainly in Alpha Team's favor, and the momentum is with Alpha Team right now. The helicopters do a decent job to thin out this many units, but it still is a 2v1 kind of on the left-hand side of this picture. And Animorph's got another factory on the way. So Tomahawk is at risk of losing a lot of the helicopters if they don't move. The SAMs for ADR are guarded very well by Nickname's tanks. So they're relatively safe, and they're moving up forward to try to snipe more helicopters. And Bravo Team helicopters in the bottom left are crushing it. There are these 2 blue SAMs, but 2 blue SAMs won't be able to take on this many helicopters. And if all the helicopters proc to the SAMs at once, the SAMs will be destroyed. Just because of these overwhelming numbers. Tomahawk's got 2 interceptors. They are the coolest unit in the game, that is known. This is a fact. And they might be able to be used if the helicopters for ADR decided to move to the right-hand side of it. Animorph's got 3 tricky commandos here. I have no idea how they got out. This is Bravo Team's vision, so as they get closer to the building, they'll be seen. But until then, like, these 2 are still stealthed. Snow's 1 interceptor would have done decent against some of these helicopters. ADR is able to push a little bit. And potentially with the help of Nickname's tanks, Bravo team might be able to break out here. I'll be very surprised if that's the case. ADR's got a barracks on the bottom left now, which will help speed up taking all that territory. And I think that, yeah, the commandos for ADR have been cleaned up. There's another drop. Okay, never mind. I was going to head home. I was going to say there's another drop to the left-hand side for ADR. And there's actually just one commando path for Animorph that might just be able to help out and see any commandos that might be there. I have no idea how this happened. How these commandos got there. Maybe it was a commando drop, I didn't even see it, but Alpha Team is adding more towns and more eco to the mix. And so pretty soon they're just going to be able to pay for this win. And yeah, we can see that Alpha Team has more of the map. The good thing for Nickname is that they've cleared out a lot of this army from Tomahawk on the right-hand side with these tanks. And Tomahawk actually is in a defensive posture in this mountain range, or in this forest. But these two towns, when they come online, there'll be more income for Alpha Team. There's no rockets on the way for anyone on the map yet. And is this all interceptors? It is all interceptors from Snow on the leftmost airport. So here comes Tomahawk's push. There's now 2 refineries for Orange. So these helicopters can all fly at once. And this might be the beginning of the end. Now that all these helicopters are out here, there are some SAMs. There's still a decent number of SAMs for Bravo Team. They're a little bit out of position at the moment. So a handful of these tanks will go down. Animorph is out of fuel, which is a very good thing for Bravo Team. It's because of this one refinery that we saw got sniped earlier. And Nickname is trying to make magic happen with these tanks. Okay, good SAM versus helicopter action here. 4 blue SAMs against this many helicopters. The helicopters would still be able to destroy all the SAMs. Now that there's what is going to be 5 interceptors or so, now that they're showing up as well, the helicopters are all going to get wiped. They might be able to get all the SAMs. They get everything except for 1. But at the cost of all the helicopters. Which now opens up blue to be able to push. And all these attack lines overlapping. Orange has a bunch of units. It's just not going to work. I'm going to be shocked if it's going to work for Bravo Team. Refinery is now on the way for Animorph, so that'll get the red tanks rolling again. And with this many tanks here for Nickname, the only reason that they wouldn't be able to destroy this entire army and then keep pushing is potentially because of these helicopters for Tomahawk. ADR's SAMs are in perfect location to cut them off before they get to the tanks. I know there's talks about technologies in this game and being able to alter the way that units work, and I know something that was suggested was chafe or whatever for the interceptors, so they'd be able to shoot that off and maybe waste a few SAM missiles. Maybe that'll become a thing, we don't know. But it would change the dynamic of helicopters engaging SAMs, because you could send some interceptors as well, and maybe they'd be able to tank some shots. And would probably just, in general, look cool, which is the main reason that I'd be interested in it. So we can check the eco. 570 for Nickname, 840 for ADR, 780 for Blue, Snow, 560 for Animorph, and 490 for Tomahawk. who is losing this fight on the right-hand side because of this great combination of tanks and SAMs, and the tank count for Nickname is pretty impressive, since it's been 5 factory tank for Nickname pretty much this entire time. It'll be very difficult for Bravo Team to actually do any damage on the left-hand side of the map, especially now that there seems to be just roaming packs of infantry all over the place that would be able to help detect commandos if ADR were to drop them. But good news is that this front is kind of leveled out for Nickname and ADR, and they're pushing slowly towards Tomahawk's base. I'm wondering if there's enough helicopters on the left-hand side of our Alpha Team. If they had a huge helicopter count, they'd be able to take on how many SAMs, because the big deal is that ADR can't really afford to just keep building SAMs and able to, like, in order to deal with this artillery army and tank army from Animorph. Because every SAM produced is not an artillery piece to deal with this. Very slowly, Blue is going to be able to win this fight. And Animorph's got 4 tanks that are going to try to take on Nickname's tanks. They're going to try their best to get on top of the SAMs is what it looks like. This is a pretty big amount of infantry on the far right hand side. I'm not sure the colors are, I think this is ADR, the infantry here, but either way, if these are Nicknames or ADRs, they're Bravo teams in general, and they're about to get inside this forest. The big problem is it's just so hard to have air cover, or like anti-air coverage over on the right hand side. So all these helicopters for Tomahawk, which continue to get produced out of this airport, they're going to be able to deal with all those infantry. Here's a dock, transport boats being built out of it, so that indicates that ADR is going to try to go for a naval invasion on the left-hand side of the map. But great SAM count here for Snow, pushing all of these helicopters back. And yeah, this is the problem. It kind of stalls out here for Bravo Team. It's hard to push that extra mile to get on top of Tomahawk's actual production. And now that Animorph is pushing most of their army towards Bravo Team's base, super tough situation. Now we just watch Line War. We'll see this first factory go down, and there's really nothing stopping it at this point. Nickname would have to have a lot of tanks here in order to push this back. And there's a decent number of helicopters. I mean, Animorph's about to show up with a bunch as long as this energy situation can get under control. It looks like Snow and Animorph have a pipeline between the 2 refineries, so maybe we'll see some energy sharing anytime now. Like, the tanks can really push through an artillery line like this. It's just they're pushing through to, unfortunately, like, no obvious targets, and they're just kind of picking off a few units at a time. And when Animorph snipes this refinery, I think, so there is a second refinery for Nickname which is full, but this is going to run out pretty quickly. Nickname's got another refinery on the way, since they saw that that one was about to get sniped. But here comes all the helicopters from Tomahawk's 2 airports of helicopters. And after that little rocky start, because of how effective Nickname was with the tanks, now the helicopters swarm is here in numbers. Nickname, GG's, and that is it. Well played all. Tough starting position for Flat, but that is expected. Thus is the way of Line War. And income-wise, this is what we got. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you enjoyed the cast. Thank you, folks, for the support, however you do it. Liking, commenting, subscribing, just watching the videos in general. Special shout out to all the folks who have been grinding out and playing games daily on Line War. Seeing folks in the Looking for Matches channel, always active, always welcoming new folks. You know who you are. Shouts out to you. Hope you have a wonderful night, day, evening, whatever it is. See you around. Peace.